Good evening and welcome to the June 8, 2022 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Bob Sutton and I'm the chair, and I would like for the commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Marcia Barnes.
Julie Pelletier.
And James Doman.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Michael Kine, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is to consider projects that we think can be expedited. But first, have the projects for this meeting been advertised?
Yes, they were advertised in the June 1st edition of the Washington Times.
Thank you. We will first consider projects that we think can be expedited. And these projects have been presented to us, and I will get my numbers out here. Starting with item number 1A at 10600 St. Paul Street in Kensington. Case number 1B at 17715 Meeting House Road in Sandy Spring. Case number 1C at 26130 Frederick Road in Clarksburg. Case number 1D at 5625 Lambeth Road, Bethesda. Case number 1E at 1811 Brigham Dam Road in Brookville. Case number 1F at 8822 Hawkins Lane, Chevy Chase. Case number 1G at 7334 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case number 1I at 7128 Willow Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case number 1J at 109 Elm Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case number 1K at 30 Hosketh Street, Chevy Chase. And case number 1L at 5701 Achille Lane, Rockville.
Mr. Chairman, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with the staff reports, including any conditions, and based on the record before us and in consideration of the recommendations of local advisory panels. So we have hop number 992009 at 10600 St. Paul Street, Kensington. Hop number 991955 at 17715 Meeting House Road, Sandy Spring. Hop number 992285 at 26130 Frederick Road, Clarksburg. Hop number 993839 at 5625 Lambeth Road, Bethesda. Hop number 992960 at 1811 Brighton Dam Road, Brookville. Hop number 993275 at 8822 Hawkins Lane, Chevy Chase. Hop number 993419 at 7334 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 993240 at 7128 Willow Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 993041 at 109 Elm Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number hop number 936072 at 30 Hesketh Street, Chevy Chase, and hop number 993420 at 5701 Achille Lane, Rockville.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Haynes. I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you very much. And for the project managers who prepared these projects, thank you for giving us projects that we could very easily approve. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to meet with staff starting tomorrow. Now, we'd like to hear the case 1H at 15020 Clopper Road in Boyds. Is there a staff report on this project?
Yes, there is. Thank you. So this is a secondary resource in the Boyds Historic District, and this house was built circa 2012. And the proposal is retroactive installation of a new 96 linear feet, 6-foot-high wood privacy fence at the rear property line. The fence posts are currently 8 foot high, but they will be reduced to 6 feet if the HOP is approved and the work can proceed. And the posts I've highlighted here for you in this image. And this is the proposed site plan with the proposed fence marked by the red dashed line. The applicable guidelines are Montgomery County Code, Chapter 24A8, the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation, and Vision of Boyds, a long-range preservation plan. The commission requires fences forward of the rear plane of the historic house to be no higher than 4 feet and to have an open appearance, preserving the visibility, interaction, and perceived openness of the properties and streetscape. Fences behind the rear plane are typically allowed to be as high as 6 feet, 6 inches high with a closed appearance. However, the commission has taken the view sheds of rural village historic districts into account in a different manner than residential suburban historic districts when considering the visual impact of privacy fences. This part of the Boyds Historic District does have a more open aspect between the properties that should be considered when reviewing the visual impact of the fence. Although staff is recommending approval of the proposed rear fence, staff notes that a closed fence of this style at the side property lines would likely not be appropriate or compatible. The Boyds Historic District exhibits a variety of fence materials and styles, and just some examples here: metal picket, split rail wood picket, and chain link fences, including those at the front and sides of properties. Staff finds that the proposed fence is generally compatible with the subject property and with the eclecticism of the surrounding streetscape. Staff finds that the proposal will not remove or alter character-defining materials, features, or spaces of the property or surrounding streetscape per standards number 2 and 9. And the fence could be removed in the future, leaving the essential form and integrity of the property and its environment unimpaired in accordance with Standard 10. So staff recommends approval in accordance with Chapter 24A, 8B, 1, 2, and D, as well as with the standards number 2, 9, and 10. And just to reiterate, staff's findings and recommendations are based upon the proposal to cut down the fence post to 6 feet, as stated in the application. The existing taller fence posts are inappropriate and incompatible, and they are not being recommended for approval. And with that, I can take any questions you have for me. Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
This is Commissioner Dolman. Does the fence go the whole length of the back? It looks like to me the way you had it, it was only partial of the back, not the whole length. Yeah, that drawing there.
Yeah, that is correct. It doesn't extend from corner to corner.
And
It's
what's
just-
on the sides? Just open then?
I believe so. The applicants are here, and they will come forward to testify, and we can ask them, but I believe that's going to remain open. There is an existing fence there that I believe is on the neighbor to the rear of their property, but we can confirm that with the applicants.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? If not, I will ask, I believe, Maria Romero from the property. Is Ms. Romero here? Could you please come forward to the table here? That's fine. Whoever, that would be just fine. And if you could, the microphone in front of you, there's a button you can push, and when the light on it comes on,
Sure.
it should be on, and if you could state your name for the record, we'd appreciate it. And you have 7 minutes if you'd like to give a testimony. You can use that, or if you'd prefer, you can take questions, but 7 minutes are yours, however you choose to use it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. The fence, it's dealing, good fences make good neighbors. I'm sorry. My name's Catherine Reese, and I am the property owner with my spouse at 15020 Clopper Road. But again, thank you. Sorry for that. Thank you for the opportunity. We put the fence, the expression is good fences make good neighbors. The fence right now is kind of an eyesore, and we do have photos of that. It's a wired fence, and it's been an escalating situation with the neighbors. And it's gotten to a point where it's just, we thought we'd just go with trees, but it's just been escalating with them and the dogs. And so we just the privacy fence is up there. They have dogs that anytime we're in the backyard, they will attack the fence. And so the privacy fence is just to keep the dogs quiet. And the neighbor, it's just been escalating with cursing and belligerent behavior. So that's the purpose of why we put the privacy fence up. It's mainly quietness. It's to build it until the trees that we planted in front can be put in place. So at this point, we give examples. We do have a police report, but at this point, it's just privacy to keep the dogs from barking. We can enjoy our backyard. And we do intend that once the trees become full length, that they will come down. But it's just been escalating. They've been putting weird things and devil signs, and it's just, okay, we don't need to see that. So I'll give my time to any questions.
Okay, any questions?
I have a question, sort of pertaining to James's question. How far?
This is Commissioner
This
Pelletier.
is Commissioner Pelletier. How far on either side of the fence is like exposed to the back? Because based on the diagram, the fence doesn't go all the way across your backyard, and I can't really see where it ends on either side.
On either side, it's about 12 feet on either side.
Oh, how come you didn't go all the way across?
It-
I'm just curious.
It's
It sounds like a nightmare. So
At the far end, the far corner, it's actually, there's a shed and everything, and
Oh, I
there's
see
really,
that.
and then on the other end, the dogs can't get there, and so they can't see us from that
Oh,
far
okay.
end. So it was meant to originally we had just planned to have privacy sections, and okay, we're just going to escalate it, and we'll just put it up.
Okay.
But we kept it open on the ends, and that's fine.
Okay,
So-
thanks.
Commissioner Barnes?
Well, it's a comment, as you've heard, we generally, in suburban areas, we see a lot of privacy fences. We see fewer as you move out in the county. I understand the points you've raised, and you understand our view about cutting the
Yes, ma'am.
posts
Yes,
and
ma'am.
having it at that height rather than the 8 foot.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think we're good.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? And if not, is there a
I would like to move
motion?
that we approve this hop.
Okay, you are making a motion that we approve hop number
I would,
993409 at 15020 Clopper Road. Is that correct?
that is correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Pelletier. I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and thank you so much for coming. We
Thank
appreciate,
you.
we
Thank you.
appreciate
Appreciate
you
it.
coming, we appreciate you explaining the significance of the reason that you did this, and we hope that you are happy with your fence, and that eventually the trees will grow up and you won't need it. So thank you so much for coming, and we hope you have a good rest of your week. Okay, now we will hear preliminary consultations. The first project we will hear is number 2B at 6713 Westmoreland, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is. Thank you. This is a contributing resource in the Tacoma Park Historic District. It's a craftsman circa 1915 to 25. And the proposal is removal of a post-1963 rear addition and construction of a new two-story, 1,677 square foot addition at the rear. The proposed rear addition will be coplanar with the historic house on the right side, but it will project beyond the left side of the historic house. The addition will envelop the rearmost portion of the historic house, resulting in the loss of the rearmost windows on both the right and left side. The addition will have side gables being perpendicular to the historic house and a nearly full-width shed dormer at the rear. 2 small trees will be removed from the rear of the property to accommodate the proposed new addition. The proposed materials include fiber cement clapboard siding, cedar or fiber cement shake, AZEK trim, fiberglass shingle roofing, single light fiberglass fixed encasement windows, a new wood entry door on the front elevation of the left side projection matching the existing entry door, and the addition will have deep overhangs taking visual cues from the historic house. The applicants also propose to replace the existing non-original 1/1 single-hung vinyl windows with new 1/1 double-hung fiberglass windows. Despite errors in the proposed front elevation, which suggests that the siding and trim on the historic house is proposed to be replaced, no other alterations are proposed on the historic house. So this is the existing site plan on the left and proposed on the right. Existing elevations and proposed. The applicable guidelines in this case are Montgomery County Code, Chapter 24A8, the Tacoma Park Historic District guidelines, and the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. The historic house currently has non-original 1/1 single-hung vinyl windows and non-original aluminum siding. There is also an existing one-story addition at the rear, which was constructed after 1963, and we have the 1963 Sanborn fire insurance map here, which does not depict that addition. When the applicant's proposal was initially received, staff reached out with concerns regarding both the scale and massing and design of the addition. As noted, the proposed addition projects beyond the left side of the house and it exceeds the height of the house. Per the guidelines for contributing resources, major additions should, where feasible, be placed to the rear of existing structures so that they are less visible from the public right-of-way, and this is generally consistent with the Commission's typical findings, preferring additions to be entirely at the rear, inset from both rear corners, and to have a lower ridgeline than the historic house. This ensures that additions will be less visible from the right-of-way and that they will not overwhelm or compete with the house. In historic districts, this also ensures that additions do not detract from the character of the streetscape. However, staff notes that the guidelines for contributing resources do allow second-story additions to historic houses, stating, second-story additions or expansions should be generally consistent with the predominant architectural style and period of the resource, although structures that have been historically single-story can be expanded and should be appropriate to the surrounding streetscape in terms of scale and massing. Staff recommended that the project architect explore several alternatives which would allow the addition to remain entirely behind the house and/or lower its perceived height from the public right-of-way of Westmoreland Avenue. These alternatives included holding the proposed addition to one story and building more toward the rear, reorienting the proposed addition parallel to the historic house and connecting it via a hyphen, thus minimizing the left side projection, pushing the addition farther away from the historic house and surrounding streetscape, and lessening the direct impact to the rear of the house. Building the first floor of the proposed addition partially below grade, allowing its overall height to be reduced, and lowering the floor-to-floor height of the proposed first floor. So the architect addressed these recommendations in the project narrative, indicating that they have explored these alternatives with each presenting challenges. Primarily, these challenges are related to an existing retaining wall as well as the upward sloping landscaping and garden at the rear, which limit the proposed addition's rear projection. Regarding design, staff expressed concerns about the compatibility of the proposed addition's fenestration, both the types and pattern. Staff also expressed concerns about the proposed window replacement on the historic house. So although the existing windows in the house are non-original, the original openings have been preserved. The existing windows are traditional in character, being 1/1 and rectangular with generally consistent pattern and spacing. However, the windows of the proposed addition are more modern in character. They are single light, they vary in size and shape, and their pattern and spacing is irregular. So, issues regarding design, scale, and massing. The scale and massing of the proposed addition, as well as its placement on the left side of the lot, overwhelms the historic house and potentially detracts from the surrounding streetscape. The ridgeline of the new addition is potentially incompatible with the historic house and streetscape. The proposed coplanar location of the addition at the right side of the historic house presents a compatibility issue, both in terms of differentiation. Again, the Commission generally likes to see those corners retained, and how the proposed fiber cement clapboard siding will successfully transition to the existing aluminum siding on the historic house. Another issue, the modern massing and fenestration pattern of the proposed addition is also potentially incompatible. So material issues regarding fenestration. Staff is supportive of the proposal to replace the existing non-original vinyl windows on the historic house with windows of the same style. However, staff finds that the materials are incompatible with the historic house and surrounding streetscape. Fiberglass windows are an upgrade from the existing vinyl windows, but the commission typically does not approve fiberglass windows for additions or window replacement. Staff recommends that the proposed replacement windows be 1/1 aluminum-clad wood windows or all wood windows in the historic massing of the house. Likewise, staff recommends that the windows of the proposed addition be aluminum-clad. So questions for you tonight. Does the commission concur with staff's findings and recommendations regarding the appropriateness and compatibility of the proposed addition in terms of design, scale, and massing? Specifically, staff seeks the commission's input regarding the higher ridgeline of the addition, the left side projection, and the co-planar connection on the right side. Staff asks for the commission's guidance regarding alternatives that would allow the historic house to retain its prominence while achieving the applicant's objectives. Staff seeks the commission's input regarding the modern characteristics of the proposed addition. And just a few slides with additional notes here. The applicants have provided letters of support from neighbors on both Westmoreland and Elm Avenue. And they have also provided a streetscape study and photographs of neighboring properties on Westmoreland Avenue with rear additions that have higher ridge lines and/or side projections. Of the 7 properties included in the study, 5 are contributing resources, 1 is non-contributing, and 1 is outside the district. Based on available records, staff was able to determine that 2 of these additions at contributing resources, and that would be 6803 and 6809 Westmoreland, were constructed with HOP approval after the district's 1999 designation. And these are those 2 examples pulled from the submitted study. The applicants have provided streetscape renderings showing the historic house with proposed addition as it would relate to the immediate neighbors to the right and left. Staff suggested additional streetscape renderings to further illustrate the relationship of the proposal to the surrounding houses would be helpful in determining appropriateness and compatibility in terms of scale and massing. So staff recommends that the applicant make any revisions based upon your comments and return with a HOP. And with that, I can take any questions you have for me. Thank you.
Are there any questions for staff?
Yes, this is Commissioner Dolman.
Commissioner Doman?
Thank you for the very detailed analysis of the situation. It's quite an undertaking that the applicant has here. Unrelated to everything that you have in here, you also mentioned that there are some trees to be removed, and I'm just curious because you didn't address any comment regarding the trees. Are they major, minor trees, or what is the situation on that?
So that information was not included in the submission. It's not on the site plan. From speaking with the architect, as I recall, these are sizable trees, certainly mature trees greater than 6 inches. But in order to build the addition in the location that's proposed, they would necessarily have to come down. But we can ask them when they come forward for additional information.
So they're not just little,
No.
they're fairly sized, good-sized trees.
My understanding is that they're of greater size.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? If not, the owner and owner representative could come forward. That would be wonderful. And you can, the microphone in front of you, if you push the button, the little red light right near the top will come on. And if you could state each of your names or whoever would like to speak. Unfortunately, I don't have your names here on my list, so I apologize for that. So if you could introduce yourselves for the record, that would be great. And collectively, you have 7 minutes for your testimony.
I'm Emily Adams. I'm one of the owners at 6713 Westmoreland.
I'm Alex Thompson. I'm Emily's husband and also one of the owners.
And I'm Joseph Rabinowitz. I'm their representative.
Thank you. So if do you have a presentation you'd like to give us?
Yes, I can just address the one question from Mr. Doman. I'd just like to address the one question from...
If you could get a little bit closer to the
Sorry,
mic,
is
would
that
be
better?
helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Sorry about that. So I can just address the question from Mr. Doman. There are actually no trees being removed in regards to the addition. So to clarify your question. But we're happy to take any questions you might have. Obviously, we're interested in hearing feedback from the commission.
Okay. So any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Haynes.
Thank you. During the staff presentation, I understand you tried different scenarios, and there was a mention of retaining wall. Are the retaining walls the curly graphics I'm seeing on the site plan? If we can bring up this site plan again.
Actually, that's the topography, one of the topography lines. The retaining wall is the rectilinear lines directly over the proposed addition. So I believe the parallel lines to the addition directly on the right-hand image
Yeah.
are the current retaining walls.
Are there another set of retaining walls farther back on the property?
I believe that just might be a layer of topography that's been kept in.
There's a stone patio up there, but I don't know that there's a retaining wall. There might be some terraced retaining walls up there.
There's
Okay.
stone.
It's deep in the, yeah.
Correct.
So where the table is there is on a patio deep in our garden.
Yeah,
And there's some stonework around it that
yeah.
Okay,
keeps it in place.
thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I had a question. This is Commissioner Pelletier. Why is it designed at different levels? Like, why do the existing and new floors not line up?
That's an excellent question, and thank you. Currently, we have egress. We want to try and keep the second floor as low as possible. So the first floor is your normal cottage kind of approach to the house where there's a front porch and a staircase entrance. In order to access the basement currently, the staircase is currently perpendicular to where it is now. So in order to access the basement, it becomes easier to create a switchback stair going down and then being able to access the basement. So in the we have both the existing and the proposed plans listed in the sheets that we sent in. It becomes much easier to kind of egress through the house with a centralized staircase that switches back. It also allows us to keep the second floor in line with the current second floor where the attic location is.
Oh, okay.
And it allows egress onto grade for the backyard, which is a primary feature of this home.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Barnes?
I have a question about the, in what we have before us, or I assume people have before them, looking at a proposal for the front elevation, the door on the left. And I presume that's going into the large room at the back, but it seems to compete, and I noticed that the local area advisory panel also commented on this. It seems to compete with the front entrance, and I wondered if you could talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. I would say that it allows, we wanted to provide egress into the main area of the entertainment of the house. It does match the front door in a nod to the historic kind of composition of the original front door. Obviously, the porch and the front gable are facing out to the street. And then this is actually, I believe the actual addition is set back about 40 or 50 feet at that point from the street. So for the owners to access the great room area or to have visitors that are don't want to walk upstairs, it was just figured that it would be a nice opportunity to provide egress at the street level. So that way it would be a bit more accessible.
If I may, in our current house as it is right now with our sort of steep front porch stairs, neither Emily's grandmothers nor my grandmother could actually get into our house. So if they were to come visit us, it was always only in the backyard.
And both of us have our parents in the area who are aging, and so one of the key things of the addition was to find a space where we could have them get into our house easily without stairs.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Dolman. It looks like to me that this is on the left side. This is on the left side of the house. This is where your driveway is that correct? So people visiting you would come into this driveway, and then this would be the primary entrance now, more or less. I mean, you still have the front porch and everything, but as you expressed, difficulty of climbing the stairs and everything. So this entrance now becomes basically your main entrance then. If you're bringing groceries into the house and everything, you're going to go this way. Is that correct? Pretty much.
Thanks. I assume it remains to be, I guess it remains to be seen, but I assume that it would be, yes.
Okay. I mean, it serves a,
Yeah,
there's a
functional.
very important reason for it to be there. I
Yeah.
understand. Okay.
Mr. Haynes, did you have another question?
I did. In looking on page 21, there's kind of a site section. My question is there room sectionally to adjust that basement level? I mean, could you pull that down another 1.5 feet? I see you do have a low garden wall, it appears, along the back. That might, again, allow you some flexibility to adjust the section downward and also help bring the roof line down.
Do you mean the top image on the page, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we still would be lining up the second floor with the existing second floor. So even if we go further down, it would just raise the ceiling. Excavation would be more costly.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I have, thank you very much. You can.
Sure.
I have Justin Allen. Is Justin Allen here? If you'd like to come forward. Are you a citizen, or are you part of I'm sorry? I'm a neighbor. Or a neighbor, okay. Would you like to make a comment? I have your name here on the list. If not, that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, I came here to support them.
Okay, great. If you could come up, you can stay here if you'd like, that's fine. And again, if you could state your name for the record and the microphone there, push the little button. Thank you so much.
Justin Allen.
You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, no worries. My name is Justin Allen, and I'm here testifying on behalf of myself, my wife, my kids, 1- and 4-year-old who really love nothing more than saying hi to our next-door neighbors every morning from the porch. We're deeply supportive of their plans to expand their house at 6713. So from the plans that Alex and Emily have shared with us, it's clear that they worked hard to make thoughtful design choices that will maintain the character and feel of the house and blend seamlessly into the neighborhood. I think the plan design reflects the style of many of the other homes in our street. And if we want to keep our neighborhood as attractive and desirable place to live, we have to accommodate the needs of today's families and lifestyles. These houses are designed in the early 1900s, and they don't necessarily meet today's needs. The builders who owned our home before us added a major addition to the back. Without it, we wouldn't have considered buying the home, since it wouldn't have had the space for our family. I believe Alex and Emily are in a similar position, as would likely future inhabitants of the home. So we want to make sure they can stay in the neighborhood, and growing their house is the best way to do that. It's also important to note that our part of the block is not exactly in great shape right now. The house across from theirs is in bad shape and in need of major rehab. 2 doors down, there's another badly deteriorated home. For the sake of the neighborhood as a whole, it's important that we encourage investment in the upkeep of homes, lest we should find ourselves with even more eyesores for neighbors. Alex and Emily are trying to improve their home. So we urge you, and me and my family urge you, to approve this project for homeowners and community members alike on our street. So we're very supportive. Thanks.
Any questions for Mr. Allen?
I have a question.
Commissioner Doman.
I got your name, but what is the address? There's several homes in this.
Sure.
sheet here.
My address
Where are
is-
you located relative to the property?
6801 Westmoreland, directly next door to them. If you're
Right
facing the home, to the left side.
Gotcha, okay,
Yep,
thank you.
sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Allen? If not, you're welcome to stay here. We will now start our deliberations, and let me just say that we have I know, we have a very talented group of commissioners here, and what we do with these preliminary consultations is we give you what we think are things that will make this a good project that we can easily approve when it comes before us for a historic area work permit. And you don't have to do what we suggest. There's no requirement to do that, but I think this is I don't know of any other commission that does what we do. And this is, I think, a really wonderful opportunity for you to listen to what we have to say about your project. And with that, I will open it up to commissioners to give you what we think should be the next steps for this project. Would anyone like to start off? Commissioner Pelletier?
This is Commissioner Pelletier. In driving down the street, I live in Tacoma Park. I live sort of around the corner from you guys. But I hadn't spent a lot of time on Westmoreland, and I think it's a nice addition. I thought when I looked at the presentation that it was kind of big. And then I went by, I did a drive-by, and what you have working to your advantage is how close together the houses are and on your block. And you have quite a large addition on your house, and you can hardly see it from the street. And I mean, there's so little space in between the houses. So I think although it looks big on, like, in this sectional drawing, I think in perspective, I think it's quite appropriate. And I think it's kind of clever the way you've managed to get the door down on the ground floor for reasons that you're talking about, accessibility and stuff. The back elevation, I think, is a bit grandiose, but it's also on the back, and you have no evidence of it driving down the street. You would never know that that's what's back there. I mean, I think it's just it's a bit inappropriate in general for the house, but it's also kind of out of our purview because you cannot see it from the street. So I could support this project in its present state. Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes?
I, too, had similar initial reactions regarding the massing, but I agree that the street front perspectives do allow I feel the original resource to maintain its present, and the addition tends to be set back far enough that it's not overwhelming the historic home portion. I am fine with the side entry. I think it's far enough back. Many homes do have a secondary entry, whether it's on the side or the back. If there were a way to bring the roof line down, I haven't really studied the building sections thoroughly, but I would like to see that. I think the windows, certainly the ones that are visible from the street, to be more proportionally aligned with the historic house, I think would be a way to better relate the two pieces. And hopefully you agree with staff on the type of window, the fiberglass versus aluminum clad. I would encourage that as well. But I guess overall, I'm fine with the back facade. I think it's appropriate, given the depth of yard that you have and the landscaping back there. That's all fine. So overall, I feel it's a supportable project. If there is any way to bring that, the delta between the existing roof line and the new roof line down, you know, you're at 4.5 feet. If there's any way to carve a foot out of there, that'd be great. But overall, I'm fine. The one thing about the siding, what is your thought about how you're going to integrate the fiber cement with, what's the existing? It's
Aluminum.
aluminum. How are you going to take care of that on the right side?
I would imagine that we would use a trim detail in between. It's an inside corner and a continuous side on the, so on the south side, it would be a continuous siding. And we would probably do a trim detail to differentiate where the old siding exists and the new siding. On the north side, it's an interior corner, so I think that would be an appropriate place to put an interior trim detail.
Do you know what's underneath the aluminum siding?
I do not.
Is there any interest in getting rid of the aluminum siding?
Well, with the cost of this project already increasing day by day, I mean, I suppose we'd be curious to know what's underneath there, but I have a feeling that it may not be in good shape, based on what we see elsewhere around the street.
I'm sure there was a reason why they put the aluminum siding on there in the first place, so. All right, that's all I've got.
That is Commissioner Doman.
Commissioner Doman.
I agree with the comments made by the other commissioners. I find Tacoma Park a very unusual city. I'm always baffled. I drove down there to take a look at the neighborhood, and it took me like 10 minutes to find Westmoreland. I think I drove around the block several times. I find the streets are confusing. I never know which way they're going. I have a hard time finding my way around there. But the other thing is, you have provided the drawings of the neighbors, and I did get out of the car and I walked around and took a look at the streetscape and how it presents itself if you're driving down Westmoreland. And the height of it, there are several houses that you have identified here that the addition is higher than the main house, which, you know, for all the reasons that we have, we don't, as a commission, we don't normally approve additions that are higher than the existing residence. But they exist. There's several of them that you've identified in your drawings, in the photographs here, that are higher. And then there are several, which is your neighbor's house, which has the side addition on it, which is almost identical to what you're asking to do. And it just seems to me that we have, I don't want to say we have a precedent, but within our guidelines, a lot of this is not really what we would like to see, but it exists. You know, it exists up and down the street, and there's many homes that have higher additions on it, that have side additions on it, have doors on the side. So I think I'm in favor of this. Again, I would take the recommendations from staff about the windows, and as addressed about the matching the siding on the addition with the existing house. There's some things you can take a look at. But as far as Tacoma Park, it seems like it just fits in there. You know, there's houses that look just like it, and I can't be against it. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnes.
Because you've also shared some photographs of your back garden, I understand why you want that big wall of glass to take full advantage of it. It looks as if you have either done an enormous amount of work or inherited a very nice arrangement in the back. I have to say that my biggest concern looking at this was the cross gable of the addition. I'm not an architect, unlike some of the other members of this commission. So I perhaps don't have quite the eye to understand how, when you're looking at it from the street, that will recede. What it looks like now and what the measurements suggest is that you do have quite a step up in the ridge line. And while you've pointed out that there are other houses where there's a higher ridge line, it's often a gable, which is a little higher than a gable in the front. You have a cross gable, and because of that, optically, it looks quite massive. And I think that's one of the things that has caused some commentary about trying to lower that even a little bit. Once again, it may be that from a distance, because this is set back a bit, it will not stand out so prominently. I was concerned about the door on the side. As I say, I think that was something that was raised by one of the LAPs. I understand why you want to do that. That makes a lot of sense. The only question for me is, once again, whether you, in repeating the door that is on the front of your house, sort of detract from the front entrance. That's something to perhaps consider. I think that you've heard the staff's recommendation about the type of windows to use and about the fenestration, which I think is important, particularly those portions that are visible. And as the chair has said, you can take the suggestions made, you can disregard them. We will see you at some point for a hop, but I hope you will digest what you've heard here this evening, and that we will see you in the not-too-distant future.
Thank you. I just very briefly concur with my colleagues on most of what they've said. I just would really like to see if you could explore ways to lower the addition even a little bit. I think several suggestions have been made, and it just is important for us because, you know, we can say, look, this is what we'd like to see, that the addition is not as high as the structure itself. So I would really encourage you to explore that possibility. I also would very strongly recommend that you take staff's recommendation for the windows and the siding and overall fenestration. I think the points that were made there are very, very valid and something we will be looking at, I think, when the historic area work permit comes before us. But thank you very much. You've obviously put a lot of work into this. We're also very delighted to see that your neighbor's happy with it. Sometimes we don't get that. So that's encouraging to us as well, but we hope that this project moves along quickly and that we can see a final historic application for a permit from us very soon. So thank you very much. And if you have any further questions, you can talk to staff. And we also have I believe, a transcript. We will have a transcript of all of our comments. So you can, if you didn't take careful notes, you can read what we've had to say, and hopefully that will be helpful as well. So thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Chair Sutton, we need to pause the live feed to check in a member of the applicant team that is joining us virtually.
If you could let me know when we have that, that'd be great.
Yes. Chair Sutton and members of the commission, we are now back live.
Thank you. The next project is a preliminary consultation. Project number 2C at 23310 Frederick Road in Clarksburg. Is there a staff report?
Thank you. Yes, there is. So this is a contributing resource in the Clarksburg Historic District. It's a Queen Anne-style house circa 1891 to 1900. The proposal is construction of a new one-story, 13,500 square foot daycare / preschool center in the Clarksburg Historic District. The new building will be oriented toward Stringtown Road and partially located on 2 lots, the subject property lot and an adjacent undeveloped lot to the west, which is protected by the East Environmental Overlay Zone. The proposed location was recommended by Montgomery Planning and HPC staff to be consistent with the setback of the majority of properties in the district and existing development on Stringtown Road. The new construction cannot be located entirely within the undeveloped lot to the west due to impervious surface limits. The proposed building will have a contemporary design, but it is intended to be compatible in scale, proportion, and materials with the historic house and with the architectural character of the district. The proposal also includes the removal of 1 non-original outbuilding north of the historic house, the removal of 2 trees from the proposed parking lot area northwest of the historic house, and grading to accommodate the proposed improvements. So this is the site plan showing the Eastern Environmental Overlay Zone on the bottom left. The applicable guidelines are Montgomery County Code, Chapter 24A8, Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the Vision of Clarksburg, a long-range preservation plan. A little background, the applicants appeared before the commission for their first prelim back at the January 6, 2021 HPC meeting. The commission was generally supportive of the proposal regarding location and scale and massing. The commission was supportive of what was previously referred to as Option 2, which frames the historic house and allows its form and massing to be discerned against the skyline when viewed directly from the front on Frederick Road. The commission's recommendations included the use of traditional or compatible new materials, design simplification, and more compatible fencing. The applicants have responded to the commission's previous comments and recommendations with their current proposal. Specifically, the applicants proposed the preferred design option, Option 2, the use of traditional and compatible new materials, for example, standing seam metal roofing and a mix of wood and fiber cement siding. The building design has been simplified with the removal of previously proposed exterior trusses, and the proposed fencing will be a more traditional black aluminum picket fence. And the commission's comments, including those of the individual commissioners and the applicant's responses, are fully outlined in pages 6 to 9 of the staff report. So this, it's a little hard to make out on the screen, but this is the proposal with Option 2, and you can perhaps make out how the design with the non-continuous roof allows the house to be framed against the skyline. So this is the previous material palette, and this is the current material palette. Staff remains supportive of the proposal. As noted, staff recommended the proposed building location, finding it appropriate given the site constraints and proposed setback, which is consistent with the streetscape of the district. Staff supports the revised building materials, which are less modern, more traditional, and generally more consistent with the historic house and agricultural outbuildings. At staff suggestion, high aggregate concrete with exposed rock and gravel is proposed for the new sidewalks and walkways. At rural and agricultural historic sites, this is an appropriate alternative to low aggregate concrete, which is more common in urban and suburban environments. Staff previously expressed concerns regarding the compatibility and appropriateness of the proposed retaining walls with railings at the south side of the property adjacent to Stringtown Road. However, it is staff's understanding that pedestrian access from Stringtown Road is required and that site constraints and topography necessitate the proposed location and configuration. Additionally, the proposed retaining walls will be constructed with high aggregate concrete consistent with staff's suggestion for the proposed new sidewalks and walkways. And this is just a close look at the current proposal and specifically those retaining walls, the railings. And upcoming comment, just pay close attention here because I know it's kind of hard to make out, but this is signage on the retaining wall that I'll mention briefly. Staff recommends that the retaining walls be reduced where possible, both in terms of length and height, and that the railings be removed from the proposal if they are not necessary for code compliance. However, staff finds the proposed high aggregate concrete to be a compatible material. Staff recommends that the applicant consider adding robust landscaping in this area to soften the retaining walls over time. Staff notes that the current application depicts signage on the proposed retaining wall, but that is not being considered at this time. Additionally, staff notes that timber retaining walls could be considered as an appropriate and compatible alternative to the proposed concrete retaining walls. Staff notes that a new 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk is now proposed within the environmental setting at the east side of the property in front of the historic house on the west side of Frederick Road. A sidewalk in this location is generally compatible with the character of the district along Frederick Road, where the commission recently approved a county-funded paved shared use path on the opposite side, so on the east side of Frederick Road. While not specified in the current site plan, staff recommends that this proposed sidewalk also be constructed with high aggregate concrete, both for consistency and for compatibility with the historic character of the property. And this is the sidewalk in question. Again, historic house here, new building, and the sidewalk here. So staff's findings, as revised, staff finds that the applicant's proposal will not detract from the significant character-defining features of the property or surrounding district in accordance with Chapter 24A, 8B, 1, 2, should have included D, and standards number 2 and 9. Staff seeks the commission's concurrence regarding these findings and any additional recommendations to make the applicant's proposal more appropriate and compatible as it relates to Chapter 24A, the vision, and the standards. And staff recommends that the applicant make any revisions based upon your comments and return with a HOP application. And with that, I'll take your questions. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Oops, sorry. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Barnes?
I have two questions. One, could you bring up the site plan again and help me understand where the parking is proposed? And the second one, and maybe it works better in terms of flipping through, is the issue of signage, because I didn't think that was addressed in the application, but it's obviously something they must be giving some thought to. And you mentioned it kind of in passing.
Sure, I can go over that. So this is the site plan. The proposed parking area, we have some accessible parking up close to the building here. And again, just to make sure everyone's well aware and oriented to the site, this is Frederick Road, Stringtown Road.
Mm-hmm.
So you would access the property from Frederick Road. There's a parking lot here, and then accessible parking here. So that addresses the parking.
So, I'm sorry, so you said accessible parking here, and then the sort of long piece beyond is also parking?
Yeah, and if we remember, that site was originally being considered for the building itself.
Yes. Mhm. Okay.
And because of to be consistent with the setbacks in the district, it was recommended that it be pulled closer to the street. So the signage, and again, I admit that it's hard to make out here, but it's beyond what's being shown here. A tree, so you can maybe make it out. There's some lettering and then something here.
And you've not received any indication of the size or anything that's proposed?
We haven't received enough information to really make any comments at this point.
Mm-hmm. And how does that relate to signage elsewhere on Springtown Road?
I think it would be pretty atypical. I can't think of any examples of signage like that in front of a building attached to a retaining wall or site wall. So it would be atypical, but again, I think that should be addressed at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Is Commissioner Doman?
Commissioner Doman?
For staff. The drawing showed a 6-foot wide sidewalk along Frederick Avenue. Yeah, that drawing there. This was not originally, when they came before us in 2021, this was not in there, is that correct? This is...
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
This wasn't included.
And does the sidewalk go anywhere? I mean, on the north side, appears to end. Is there more sidewalk? Would people be using this, or is this go anyplace? Or is
Well,
it just
I'm
dead
trying
end?
I'm trying to recall exactly where the commission, because the commission has reviewed several applications for a shared use path on both the east side of the road and I think in a small section, a little further north than this, but a small section on the west side of Frederick Road. I'm not sure if that's,
Is this required by the county to have a sidewalk here?
yes.
It is.
This is Rebecca Balla with the staff. Yes, it is. This is part of the county's vision for enhanced transportation improvements, part of the county's Vision Zero initiative to have the connecting sidewalks. This is also the side of Frederick Road where the Clarksburg Elementary School is located. So the idea in the county's transportation master plans is to ultimately have pedestrian connectivity on both sides of the road. So while at the moment it does not connect to any sidewalk on the north side, you are correct. There are pieces of another shared use path, as Mr. Kine was referencing, up near Spire Street. And there is the vision to have full pedestrian connectivity on this side of Frederick Road as well.
Okay. I have seen subdivisions where a sidewalk was required, and then it is dead ends, and nobody uses it because it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, but what you're saying, that there is a proposal plan to continue this northward, all right? Okay.
That is the county's vision, yes.
Okay, now on the other one, you had, is it Stringtown Road, the elevation? You showed there's like ramps that come on up to give you access to the building. Yeah, this drawing here. The railings are optional, is that correct? Or are they to be put in there permanently?
So staff's recommendation was that they be removed from the proposal if they can be removed and still meet code requirements. So I think that's a question to ask the applicants. I'm sure they've explored that because I know we've had this conversation several times, staff has with them. But they can address that when they come forward. But if the railings aren't necessary, staff would recommend that they be removed from the proposal just because it lessens the visual impact there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Thanks. This may be a question for the applicant, but I'll ask staff anyway. As far as drop-off to this facility, is this ramp meant as a drop-off point, or is it meant as like someone's getting off the bus and they walk up? Like, is this going to create a line of cars sort of along the road?
This is a requirement to meet code. The building has to have pedestrian access from the street that it fronts on. So this is required here. And again, there are some site constraints and topography that almost necessitate it being in this location. To the left or east, again, we have that East Environmental Overlay Zone. And then the topography is pretty much the same as we continue west for a while. And then we start getting far away from the front of the building and closer to the historic house. So again, we've had those conversations with the applicants, and they need to have something pretty much here in this location. And the switchbacks, as I've called them, they're almost necessary just because of the topography.
But that's not necessarily, that's there because they're being required to put it in.
Right.
But probably the typical drop-off at this daycare center will be to go up the driveway and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that is envisioned that all of that will be on site, and the applicant can talk about the code requirements further, but this is an ADA access requirement.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thanks.
And also, just to comment, if you've been down Stringtown Road much or if at all, I don't foresee anyone attempting to drop people off here.
Questions for staff? If not, I would invite the owner's representative. I have one name, Dylan Macro, who I believe is joining us remotely. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Macro is on the call, but we also have the rest of the applicant team here in person, and they can come and introduce themselves.
Great. Now, if you could come up, you know the drill, I hope, now. Take a seat where one of the microphones is, located, push the red button, or the button so the red light comes on. And if you could introduce yourselves, that would be great, and you'll have 7 minutes. And you can do a presentation, take questions, whatever you prefer. Thank you.
Yeah, I am Praveen Bolaram, the owner of the property.
I'm Stephen Kale, architect.
Kate Caranda from Goodwin and Associates. I'm the preservation consultant on the project.
And I'm Dylan Macro, civil engineer.
Okay, whoever would like to start?
Well, I can just, I'm not sure exactly what to discuss except for the things that were actually brought up here already. So, and I can start with those. I think we have really spent a fair amount of time trying to address the comments that you made at the last application meeting. Oh, sure. And and I think I really think it's very responsive, and it will be a really nice design. We had, as Ms. Ballo and Mr. Kine know, there have been a lot of other government agencies involved in this, particularly with regards to the ramp. So the ramp is required. There's really no other place we can put it. There are handicap accessibility requirements for handrails on both sides of the ramp. So there's no way to eliminate a railing on both sides. What we are trying to do, we are showing, and Dylan can speak to this a little bit more, we are showing quite a bit of landscaping in front of those walls. We're keeping those walls down as low as they can be. I mean, they are guardrails as well as supporting handrails. So they have to be so high by code. The other thing is, too, we're concerned about creating situations where people can hide behind walls, or, I mean, when we have so many things, shrubbery, walls, another wall, we're trying not to create situations where we're going to create insecure situations as well. So hence, we are showing in a couple of locations those open rails or railings that match the fencing that we're showing around the rest of the site. Trying to think of what were the other concerns that you had. We did address. Go ahead.
Signage.
Yeah, so signage, I don't think that's something that necessarily we're concerned about with this.
It has to turn green. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think signage is not an important part of our application at this point, and is not, I think, as Mr. Kine mentioned, that's not something that we're actually looking for your approval on at this point. But we thought that that was actually, keeping signage low as opposed to, up on the face of the building would be more elegant and a better way to address it, so.
And the proposed tenant would be more than happy to work with us for the signage and wherever the HPC and everybody else would be happy with.
I'm not sure if you want me to speak to the landscaping, but I'm happy to do that. To Steve's point earlier, we've spent quite a bit of time selecting the plantings to help provide a robust landscape around the wall, and we'd certainly be open to any comments or suggestions that staff has if there's any items that you think need to be addressed as far as the landscaping. We did provide an exhibit, and I'm happy to share my screen if it's not included in this package. We did provide a landscape exhibit rendering, kind of showing, a colored plan view that may be a little bit more illustrative of that area. There, yep. And you can see the new plantings around the parking area and around the retaining walls and the south side of the building to help kind of provide some screening for that area, both areas.
Likewise, there was also a comment made by the commission last time we met about landscape between the historic resource and the new building, and you can see that also shown in that area as well, so.
Anything else?
Dylan, anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Oh, we will have questions.
No.
If you have anything you'd like to include in your presentation, we'd be welcome. We'd love to hear it.
I mean, we can pull up, if you want to pull up the building elevations. I'm trying to think of the things I mean, Mr. Kine's done a great job of conveying the responses, so I don't want to necessarily repeat what he said, but if you pull up the building elevations, one of the comments made previously, we had previously shown actually multiple options to you guys. So you guys did provide us feedback. We took the options that you had actually preferred. We have, we've gone with an option here where we're using a combination of natural wood and James Hardy siding product that matches it matches the horizontal siding of the existing building. And I think is more in keeping with, as Mr. Kine mentioned, agrarian buildings, and I think that was a comment that you guys made as well. So trying to keep the scale of it down as much as we can. I think one of the individual comments that was made previously was about the pitch of the roofs, or even I think someone mentioned, you just have a flat roof? Well, we're trying to really keep the scale of this down, and the roofs are also not only in our minds creating a kind of pavilion-like quality to these and breaking down the overall scale of the building, but also they're hiding mechanical equipment. So we're going to have mechanical equipment either on the roof or on the ground, and we want to hide it. So we think that's the best option to do that. So, and I think most of you agreed last time we met.
Thank you. Any questions for the property owners and representatives? Commissioner Barnes.
Hi. I have several questions I'd like to ask, and I'm not sure to whom to address them, so whoever is able to respond, I'll be delighted to hear from you. What will the address be for this facility when it's completed?
That's a great question.
Same, 23310 Frederick Road.
Okay. And the access to the facility will be from the driveway off of Frederick Road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, when you were here a year ago, a little over a year ago, one of the things that I found interesting was that there would be the ramps up from Stringtown Road, but when you got to the top of the ramps, you couldn't get into the building. You had to walk the length of the building because the entry was at the other end. Is it possible to come up from Springtown Road and enter the building?
From Stringtown? So Stringtown, so my understanding of the ramp is that it's basically providing public access. So someone who has a child in the neighborhood who lives there, they want to take their child to the preschool, and they're in a wheelchair, this provides them with access. And so that's
But the question was, when you get up
Yes.
to the top,
Mhm.
is there a way to get into the building, or do you continue to have to go the length of the building?
You
to
have
the
to
end?
go the length of the building. Absolutely. There's no, that is a requirement of just plain security. And it also provides access not just to this building, but to the historic resource and to the doctor's offices there as well, so.
I don't live in that area, but I've been out several times to see the property. And I have to say, and at different times of day, that I haven't seen a lot of pedestrian traffic on the sidewalk along Stringtown Road. So I haven't quite grasped the focus on having the building front on Springtown Road.
Yeah,
And it's not, it's not a drop-off point.
Right. So again, this has been something that we've worked on with you guys and with.
Well, actually, with other people in county government, I think, maybe.
And with just about every commission you could possibly find in the
Right.
county, right?
Right.
So it is not our decision, and we can't change whether there's pedestrians on that sidewalk or not, but we've placed this building where we've negotiated with all the constituency in your county.
Thank you.
Dylan, you were saying something?
No, I would just concur with Steve. I mean, we've looked at a number of different options and site layouts. We've had the building at the back of the site. We've provided access from different areas, and through all our coordination with staff over the last 2+ years, this is the location that they've decided on. And unfortunately, the access from Stringtown Road, and I agree, it's not a highly used sidewalk, is required. In addition to the ramp that we're providing, staff also asked that we widen the shared use path along Stringtown Road from an 8-foot wide path to a 10-foot wide path. So not only are we providing the ADA access to the site, we're also improving the side path along Stringtown Road as well.
Any other questions? If not, if you can turn off your microphone, we will start our deliberations. I think you heard my little spiel before that you've been here for a preliminary before. This is the second one. You're not required to take our recommendations. However, I want to compliment you for taking most of our comments previously seriously and trying to deal with all of them. So whatever we offer now, we hope that you pay attention to them. We hope that you're able to come before us very soon with the application for a historic area work permit. So with that, I will open it up for any comments for deliberations. Commissioner Barnes.
I'm happy to start, although I was interested to try and establish the choice of location of this site. There had been a previous location suggested, which is now to be used for parking. And had this, what I've noticed when I've been in Clarksburg is that I suspect this is going to be a very welcome addition to the community, because that area has grown so much that I can imagine people are looking for daycare. So I understand that there is a desire to get this done and to meet the demand that no doubt exists there. I cannot support the proposal, however, because I find that it's inconsistent and detrimental to the preservation and the enhancement of a historic site. And for me, one of the reasons I kept focusing on the address and the access is that had this been in the previous location where it did not interfere with Hammer Hill, I would have been prepared to approve it and move forward. I understand that the owner has an interest in also maximizing the use of a property after having spent, I presume, a lot of money to do a very significant restoration of Hammer Hill. So I understand that that's something that is a motivating factor, and it's something that we are asked to consider, because we should not make decisions which deny a property owner undue hardship or economic hardship. And once again, in my view, there was an alternate site that worked very well. So having said that, I will leave to my my colleagues on the commission comments about the building itself. I share the chairman's appreciation for the steps that were taken after the preliminary to adjust the structure. But for me, the issue is the location, which totally interferes with the historic site.
Other comments?
As Commissioner
Doman?
Having heard comments from Commissioner Barnes, I actually support the program. I think the applicant has done a reasonable job in responding to our concerns from the January 6, 2021 meeting that they had, and I know staff worked with them. I think the result is maybe not optimal, but I believe it's workable, and I believe it still maintains the integrity of the historic, was it Hammer Hill, the house that's on the property. I think there's been a lot of work and a lot of efforts gone into it. The choice of materials has been responsive to our comments. The allocation of the roof design has been responsive to our comments. And I would like to see this move along, and I support the program as presented today. Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Thank you. I concur with Commissioner Dolman. I think I drove by the property after, like, during the first submission in January 2021. And this historic property it's one of those properties that's it's sort of awkward in the landscape because all this development is coming around it, and it's kind of this house sitting there on a hill all by itself. And I don't know, I think it's offices, right? Is that what it?
It's my practice.
So I support the project. I think having another building up there that's a backdrop to this existing building gives it a new context. I think it needs, and I think one of our comments last time you were here was to just make the building behind really quiet, which I think you've done. And I don't get the ramp thing. Like if I was in charge, you wouldn't have to do that. But I think you've done a reasonable job of fulfilling that requirement. And who knows, maybe if you build it, people will come and they will actually use that in the sidewalk. So I can support this. I appreciate that you've responded to our comments from last time, and it looks like a great addition to the neighborhood. I think, brand new childcare facility, that's just got to be a good thing all the way around. So I would be in support of this project if it came back as a HOP. Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes.
Thank you. Site concerns aside, as the design stands, I feel the building, in terms of its scale and massing, is a good background to the historic resource. So, I mean, from Frederick Road, the building is set back in a way that allows the historic home to be the prominent feature. Obviously, on the what's the Stringtown? Thank you. That does change, but I do think, in looking at the elevations, the fenestration and such, particularly the kind of delicate screening of the horizontal boards as part of the facade, I think, again, it becomes a good background building and allows the historic resource to shine. So from that perspective, I think I support the project. I think the material selections are improved from the first version. If there's any way to have less ramp, I understand you got quite a slope and height to mitigate there, so I appreciate that. I was actually thinking, could part of the ramp, given Commissioner Barnes' comment about one has to traverse not only up the ramp, but then the entire length, maybe part of that ramp gets reconfigured, so part of it's running parallel to the length of the building to at least you end up closer to the front that way. So perhaps looking at that, it would be worthwhile. So I generally do support it because of, I think it's a good background building to the historic resource, and the materials I think are appropriate. They do respond to the regional agricultural language, architectural language that is, and does not compete with the historic resource, and I think that's a good relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't do this very often, but I actually do not concur with Commissioner Barnes. I think you've done a good job addressing our comments. I think it's fascinating to me that I think everything that staff has brought up about the front, the ramp, the rails on the ramp, and so forth, are very good points. But on the other hand, when you explain what you're required to do, I get it. I do. I would prefer that you could do things like the staff has suggested, but I understand that that's probably not really in our purview. But I think I really appreciate that you've addressed most of our comments. And I could support this project and look forward to seeing a historic area work permit soon. I also think I don't know this area that well, but I do know it's growing very quickly, and I think and this looks like a wonderful facility. It really does. I think it will be very welcome in the community. So I applaud you for it. I look forward to seeing the next application. So thank you for coming before us. Okay. Next on our agenda, do we have minutes from May 18?
Yes, Chair Sutton, those were included in your board book.
I believe there are only two of us who were actually at that meeting. I read them, and they looked fine to me. Commissioner Haynes, did you have a chance to look at them?
I did not, and I apologize.
Did anyone else look at them? Now, what do we do here?
Defer?
You can defer if you'd like.
Would anyone like to make a second
Well,
to my motion?
Did you I'm sorry, could you make the motion again?
You didn't make a motion.
Oh, I move that we approve these minutes.
Can I second?
You can. You don't have to necessarily be there to.
This is Commissioner Pelletier. I second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Next on the agenda is commission items. Are there any commission items? Staff items.
Yes, thank you. We have one staff item, so this is 5701 Achille Lane, Rockville, hop number 983374. And this was a fence that was approved at this master plan site, and they're in for a revision due to HOA requirements. Previously, you approved a chain link fence at the rear of the property, and the HOA is requiring them to do a black aluminum picket fence to match the fencing approved for the front and sides. And staff supports the revision.
Michael, excuse me, was that the portion of the fence that goes along the walkway to the high school?
No, this is actually at the actual rear of the property. So I think it's probably the west side, if I'm
Okay.
remembering it correctly. Yeah, whereas the sidewalk you're referring to, assuming that I'm correct in saying it's the west side, would be at the south.
Oh, okay.
But it's an upgrade.
It's an upgrade for sure, and
Yeah,
it's consistent
no,
with what was approved, yeah.
Definitely.
Do I have a motion on this? Oh, boy. This, oh, okay, thank you.
This is Commissioner Pelletier. I make a motion that we approve the changes for HOP 983374 at 5701 Achille Lane in Rockville.
Is there a second?
It's Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Let's see, anything else? I believe that is it. Thank you all. The meeting is adjourned.